And then we really started pushing it in terms of alternative assessments are actually really good for student learning. They're really good for student learning. So, as you know from the LEX course, oops, no, Janice, will you back me up? I had to move something and then went there. As you knew from the LEX course, we based it around the standards of quality matters. And so our topic today really comes under standard 3, assessment and measurement. The assessments measure the achievement of the stated learning objectives and competencies. And then 3.4, the assessments used are sequenced, varied, and suited to the level of the course. So these are best practices we're talking about. Okay, thanks. So let's start with talking a little bit about backward design, just a reminder of this. Okay, in backward design, which is the kind of best practice for courses, you start by really identifying your learning goals, right? Really giving them some reflection and thought and thinking about them so you have learning goals that you believe in, that are matched the student level, match the course, that they are in line with program goals and university goals, like really thinking about this. I think what happens many times is some of us, and I'm pointing at me, we start teaching by somebody handing us a textbook and say, teach intro psychology, right? So my learning goals are to teach these chapters. And I never even think of, the first time I just kind of teach this textbook. But now we have the opportunity as mature and teachers who are scholarly based to really think about what are the learning goals. Let's stop there. And if you haven't revisited your learning goals in a while, I encourage you to do that next semester. Really look at them. Do you still buy them? Because the world is different now than when we started teaching, right? Even if we started teaching only a few years ago or very recently, the world is different now. Do these learning goals still really match what we need? So start there. Start there. Then from that, you go to the next step, to assessment. And this is what would students need to do to demonstrate that they met these learning goals? Again, when I first started teaching, here's a textbook, and I get 4 tests, right? And I didn't even think how these things were really necessarily linked. But when you have authentic learning goals you believe in, you can say, now, what do students need to demonstrate? And how can they demonstrate? That's what we're going to talk about today. All those things can demonstrate. Sure, a test is one way, but what are other ways? Okay. And then from there, then start getting how I'm going to teach this class. If I'm looking for this kind of skill and knowledge demonstration, how should I best teach it so they can demonstrate it that way? Okay, that's backwards design in a nutshell. We're not going to get to the learning activities today. We actually have a workshop coming up where we're going to talk about learning activities, but today we're going to focus on the assessment of our authentic goals. Okay, Janice, next one. I don't want to mess with this again. I also, just quick reminder, faculty developers cannot do workshops. So reminder of Bloom's taxonomy that when you're thinking about your learning goals, where do you really want to hit? Right? Where do you really want to hit? Recall facts and basic concepts, that's important to do, but is that all you want to do? Is that all you want to do? Or do you want to move them on up where they are understanding, where they have to explain things, where they have to apply, where they have to use it in new situations? Because if you're expecting this for your learning goals, higher things, then the assessments, how they demonstrate the knowledge is going to be different than if it's just recall, right? And I also encourage you to, in this semester, look at one of your assessments with this side by side, really see how much you're asking to do. Because I think it's really easy to say, oh, they're a higher level because they have to apply this information. But then when you look at an exam, okay, out of 25 multiple choice questions, they have to apply it on 2, and the rest is factual. Are we really getting them up there? So I encourage you to look at this. And then again, even higher level in Bloom's, we can ask them to draw connections, produce new original work. Like this is, we need to be thinking about these when it comes to our learning goals. Thanks. Authentic assessments. I've been using this language, but what authentic assessments really do is they require judgment, application in the real context where students will be using this work. All right, that's what makes them authentic. Pharmacy, this is easy to think about, right? They are training people to be pharmacists, so they are teaching this material in a pharmaceutical setting where they will be doing this. But with other disciplines, what is, like, you think about like theology, where are they really going to be using this post-Savior? They're going to be using it to think critically. They're going to be using it to like analyze situations, being open-hearted. I don't put stuff in there, but like with psychology, I want them to be consumers of information, right? And there's a lot of psychobabble out there, so I want them to be critical consumers of this. So you have to think about with your assessments, what do you really want to be doing in the real world? That's what it makes it the authentic part. They're not going to leave our classrooms and be taking intro psychology tests. They're not. But they are going to be going into bookstores and seeing a book that says, improve your relationship in 5 easy steps, right? They are going to be seeing that. So what's the realistic context? And these assessments require them to use judgment, use application within those contexts. Again, I think also in education and counseling, same thing, there's a context built in, but for a lot of other fields, there's not. Thank you. So authentic assessments. And this is a lot of work done on this, but authentic assessments or assessments are authentic if they fit these kinds of things. They're realistic. We just talked about that. They require judgment and innovation, right? Because in the real world, we use judgment. If we need facts, we go to Google, right? In the real world context, we're able to make decisions. Thank you, Janice. They ask students to do something with a subject, not just memorize the subject, but do something with a subject. Authentic assignments replicate or simulate work in the workplace, a civic context, a personal context. Some of our things that we're teaching with our mission here at Xavier isn't about workplace. It's about social justice. It's about leadership skills. It's about these. These are things that they will use in a workplace context or a personal context. Okay. And it allows for rehearsal, practice, consultation, and feedback to refine it. So authentic assessments are not one-shot, high stakes. They require, because this is not how we get real-world decision-making, right? So they require some kind of iterations and some rehearsal and practice opportunities. So here are some examples of authentic assessments. And again, this is a very limited list, but I want to get you thinking about, and this is moving beyond just exams, but doing observations of skills as opposed to just testing skills. Interviews, having students do interviews or interviewing students, doing things like annotated bibliographies, okay, instead of just getting bibliographies, video presentations. I in my health psych class recently have had them do video presentations, and I'll leave the format open, and students have done such cool stuff for their final projects. Some of them do commercials, some of them do podcasts, or I guess there's a video cast version of podcast. Some people do skits, right? These are all kind of innovative things where they're applying information. Reflections, applications. So now you just learned this biological concept in the textbook, because you've got to learn that foundational STEM stuff, right? Of course. So now, here it is. What's one application to your real life world? You'd be surprised what students would come up with that. Why do cells affect me? Okay. They do. All right. Fact sheets, infographics. Oh, students do a good job like coming up with infographics and different things. Asking them, if you're teaching them a skill, ask for a how-to manual, right? Lab skills, group projects. Okay, there are all kinds of alternative assessments we can do. Again, this is a limited list. CAT has some really cool books in our library if you ever want to look at them about just here are some cool alternative assessments. So these are like alternative assessments, and then you make them authentic by setting them into realistic context for your field based on your learning goals, right? So that are a bunch of things you can do, and that leads us to then, how do I do it in Brightspace? Take it away, Janice.
All right, thank you. You all can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so with the alternative assessments, authentic assessments, we're looking at how in Brightspace, how you might use Brightspace to help you with these. And one way would be the assignments tool. When people think about the assignments tool, they think about collecting student work. It could be individual or group work. Students would submit their work by uploading a file, or you can set it up so that they can type in a text box. The assignments tool also has anonymous marking, so that if you set up the assignment and you want to be able to grade it anonymously so you don't know which student submitted what, you can choose that as an option as well. You find the assignments tool, was that a question?
Cough.
Oh, you find the assignments tool in the activities menu under assignments. And this is the new assignment create edit experience. So D2L has been moving toward this look, this experience for the tools. You'll see that the assignments tool appears like this. The quiz creation edit experience also appears in this format, and discussions is this way as well. So that on the left-hand side of the screen, you have just your basic general information about the assignment. And then on the right with the various accordions, you can set up more specifics about the assignment. But I mentioned that students can submit a file or submit some text for their assignment, but there are actually two other assignment submission types. And one is called the on-paper submission, and the other one is the observed in person. And these two assignment types assist you with things that you want to be able to grade and provide feedback to the student in Brightspace, but the activity is occurring outside of Brightspace. So you can use those two assignment submission types to help you with that. Also, when you set up, when you choose the submission type that it's a file submission, you can indicate what are going to be the allowable file extensions. What type of file is the student going to be able to submit? The default is that there are no restrictions. They can submit any type of file. However, you may want them to only submit certain types of files depending on what you're doing. And so some of your options there are that it could be PDF only. If you want the ability to annotate or use the annotation tools inside of the assignments tool when you're grading it, then it's best to choose this annotatable files only, which then would force the student to only submit a file type that you would be able to actually annotate on. Others are being able to submit only files that can be previewed in Brightspace without converting them. If you want the students to just submit images and videos, submit files that are only compatible with Turnitin. And we will be talking more about Turnitin in next month's LEX Advanced topic. But then you also have this last option here for custom file types. So you can indicate what file extension or extensions you want to accept.
Janice?
Yes.
Let's say I decide to only allow PDF files, will the students be able to see on the assignment that they can only upload PDFs?
Correct. Okay. So the instructions in the assignment will actually show which file extensions they can submit. Okay. And you can, in your instructions, also provide that information. But Brightspace will take care of telling them as well. Thank you for that question. All right. And as I said, if you want to be able to mark up on the student's work, then under your allowable file extensions, make sure to select annotatable files. And that, like I said, that way the student will only be able to submit a file that you would be able to annotate on.
Hey, Janice, I have a question for that. Is that the default? Is the annotatable files the default?
No, the default is no restrictions.
Okay.
The default is no restrictions. So you would have to go in and indicate what file extension you want. And so, yeah. Also, and And the annotatable files, the allowable file extensions, is in the submission and completion accordion. In the evaluation and feedback accordion, the default is that this make annotation tools available for assessment is checked, but you may want to look at that and make sure that that is checked if you're planning to annotate on the files. And then for your observed in person submission, in the submission and completion accordion, you would be choosing the observed in person as your submission type. And when you choose that, you also have to indicate how you want the system to mark that as complete. Your options are manually by learners, so the learners can mark that as complete. Automatically on evaluation. So once you evaluate it, then the system would mark it complete, or it can mark it complete automatically on the due date. The same holds true for an on-paper submission type. You would have to indicate how you want the system to mark it as completed, and you have those same 3 options. And then rubrics. Rubrics are very helpful for both you as well as for the learners, and especially with alternative assessments or authentic assessments, so that you're able to assess the assignments consistently when you're evaluating it. It will definitely save you some time in grading it. The rubrics would allow you to clarify whatever expectations and give the students the components of the assignment so that they know what's expected of them. The nice thing about rubrics as well is that you can go to the rubric statistics and look at that so that you can refine your teaching methods. And as I said, they're helpful for the learners as well, because they would understand what you're expecting of them and what are the components of that assignment. And they can use the rubric and the way that you've graded it and provided them the feedback to improve their work and help them learn. So when you're in the assignments tool in the evaluation and feedback, if you want to add a rubric, you would go here to rubrics, click on the link, add a rubric, and then select the rubric. You can attach the rubric to the assignment. To simplify your workflow, what I suggest you do is create your rubric first, and then create the assignment and attach the rubric. I'm not going to get too deep into rubrics because we do have a LEX Advanced topic related to rubrics that can be found in the LEX course. And so exactly the ins and outs of how you set it up and what you need to do can be found in that module, as well as with some other resources that we have on the CAT+FD blog. But here is an example of an interactive rubric. And this one is an oral presentation rubric that I have here. And with the rubric, you would be clicking on the cells to be able to click and score. So this simplifies the scoring of it. You can also, when you're setting up a rubric, you can have some initial feedback that would be provided in addition to the criteria and level that you're selecting for the student. But you can also add feedback as well. So it makes it very easy for you to be able to provide the student with some feedback and to be able to score their work. And as I said, more information about the interactive rubrics or in the LEX course in that interactive rubrics module. You can find it there. All right, and I want to stop here and show you an example of an assignment in my sandbox course. You all can still see this sandbox course, correct?
Yep.
Okay, great. So here I'm in the assignments tool. And as I said, we go to activities and assignments to get there. And I have one assignment here that I'm calling the oral presentation assignment. So if we just take a look here at what I've done, I'm going to edit this assignment. All right. And so I've given the assignment a name, indicated how many points it's worth, and something new with this new create edit experience is that when you start off, if I just put 30 points here and then it says in gradebook, if I don't choose another option, it's going to create another column in my gradebook. We do still suggest that you set up your gradebook first, and then when you are creating your assignments and your activities, then associate the assignment or activity to that column in the gradebook. So I will be going here to in gradebook and say that I want to link this to an existing. So I'm going to choose this option that says edit or link to existing, and then choose the radio button that says a link to an existing grade item, and then just choose whichever grade item it's supposed to be linked to. If you do not, yes, go ahead.
I think this is a really important part for those who have been using Brightspace for a while. If you're brand new to it, this doesn't freak you out, but it's a new feature. So now if you don't, when you're creating this, if you don't link it, so you've already set your gradebook, you don't link it to existing grade, it's going to create a column now. It never used to do that before. And then it can really mess you up, because then you go and like, what if I got two columns? And then all of a sudden, students' grades will go into the one it created instead of the one you created for it. So this step, we still really recommend you do the gradebook first, because if you do like this, then you have to go after the fact and do all the weights and all that kind of stuff. So we still recommend doing the gradebook first, but then this is now a really nice, easy place to link it. But don't miss that step, because it looks like to me, like intuitively, I'm like, oh yeah, it's in the gradebook, and then I move on. But you have to go in the gradebook and then put it with that existing thing you've already created. Otherwise, it's causing bumps for those of us who have done it for a while. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, no, thank you. All right, and then I've indicated a due date here for my assignment. I put some assignment instructions. I've got an attachment over here, so this side is good. You can indicate any availability dates, and if you had some release conditions, you could indicate those in this availability dates and conditions accordion. I don't have anything there. But under my submission and completion accordion, this is an individual assignment. You could also set up assignment for groups, and one of the LEX Advanced topics was on group work. So if you missed that, you can go back to that and see how that works. But here under my submission type, I'm saying that this is an observed in-person assignment. And then I want the system to mark it as completed automatically when I evaluate it. So that's how I have this set up for those. And then in my evaluation and feedback, I have a rubric attached. And like I said, when you want to attach a rubric, you do it, click on this add rubric. And then if you've created the rubric already, which is what we suggest to simplify your workflow, you would say add existing and then go ahead and choose the rubric that you want to grade, use for grading. Okay, and so this is on the instructor's end, right? So I have this assignment set up. The next thing that I want to do is put it in the content area, right? So I have a module here called oral presentation, and I have this oral presentation assignment there. And remember, I would insert the assignment into this module by going to existing activities and then clicking on assignments. When I do that, then I just select the assignment from the list and it automatically puts it here in this module for the student. Now, as the student, when I'm in the course, and let me move over here. So I'm in this course as the demo student. And on the course homepage, the student sees in the calendar that this oral presentation assignment is due on September 29th, so they can see it from there. But they can also go here to content, and they see in this oral presentation module that they have this presentation that they need to do. And this bar here tells them how complete they are within the module. But if I click on oral presentation assignment, because part of my instruction says click there to get some more information. So now they have that attachment. And then they can also see the rubric here. So in this view, it's shown to them down at the bottom of the page. So if they clicked on this oral presentation rubric, hopefully you can see that the rubric is opening in a new window, right? I hope.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
great. All right, so the student can get all of that information there. They do the oral presentation and the professor is ready to grade it. So if I switch back over here to Brightspace, right, okay. So as the instructor, I now want to grade that. So I go to activities and assignments. And I'm going to view submissions. There are really no submissions. But let's say I want to evaluate, and that was my student, Francis demo student. I want to evaluate this. So I click on evaluate. And the system tells me this was an observed in person assignment. So nothing is uploaded. But here on the right, I can click on this rubric and then I can score it. So for delivery, they did a good job. For content and organization, maybe not so much. Were they enthusiastic? Who knows? Okay. So the system gives them 26 out of 30. I can add some overall feedback. And I then can publish this. If I wanted to publish everyone's at the same time, I can save everyone as a draft and then just publish them all at the same time, but you can publish them one at a time. And up here, I can move from student to student. So I'll just publish this. Okay. And then I can go back to submissions. And the system tells me that I have evaluated this student's work. Now on the student end, if I go back here to the student, under grades, the student then sees that they received 26 out of 30. I entered, this is the comment that I just entered, overall feedback, so they would see that there. And then they can click on this link to view the rubric to see exactly what happened. All right, are there any questions?
Would you mind letting me back in? I'm sorry. I just got kicked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I let you back in. I'm glad I didn't get kicked out. All right.
Any questions?
Okay.
We're good?
I just want to share one sad news about Good Friday.
Yes, we started with a prayer.
Yes.
Thank you for letting us know. Say very sad. Thank you. Lost. All right, no questions, Janice.
All right. Great. So I do have a couple of tips. And this is basically what we've been emphasizing about the grade out of section. And as Elizabeth mentioned, it seems like if you say that you want to, you give it some points, it's going to say in grade book. And it's like, yeah, in my grade book. But you really need to go here and indicate that you want to edit or link to an existing column in the grade book. If not, it's going to give you a new column, but you can't choose add to gradebook to create a new grade item if you didn't do that. My tip number 2 is about copying assignments. So there are 2 options for copying assignments. One is the copy assignment will actually copy one assignment to and make another assignment in that same course. It's going to copy all of the settings except for the grade item, the associated grade item, and the Turnitin settings will not be copied, but everything else will. So if you set up some release conditions or special access or something, it's going to copy all of that along with the assignment. So that's something that you need to look out for. You can now copy assignments from one course to other courses, which is something you couldn't do until very recently. But when you choose that copy to other courses option, you are given the choice of whether or not you want to copy an associated grade item or the rubric. So you can do that. And of course, when you're setting up your assignments and thinking about alternative assessments, design with accessibility in mind. So if you're providing videos, make sure that they're captured. Don't use color alone to indicate the meaning. Use heading styles, all that other stuff that we always tell you about designing with accessibility in mind. And then just one potential pitfall for you today, and that's about anonymous markings. And as I mentioned, you can grade the student's work so that it appears to you anonymously, but the students shouldn't include any of their personal information in the file or even on the file name that would identify who they are. That kind of defeats the purpose. Well, thank you so much. And for your attendance and participation in this workshop today, you do earn the Alternative Assessments badge that will be awarded to you in the LEX course. And I always like to give you some confetti. All right.